If you're dying to see what happens next and want to stay 5 episodes ahead in this series and others, then why wait? Join our awesome community of over 500 members on Patreon, where they're already enjoying the latest episodes right now for as little as $2.50 for your first month. So what are you waiting for? Hop over to Patreon after this video and get exclusive early access. With that said, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the page, and I'll see you in the next one. The Guardian slowly turned his gaze upward, scanning the battlefield with a cold, glowing smirk. His fingers curled, joints cracking like thunder. "One god down," he said, mocking, his voice dripping with satisfaction. "Now, who's next?" As he began to rise into the air once more, the very world seemed to follow him. Chunks of earth, broken stone, and shattered pieces of the battlefield lifted with him, caught in the swirl of his terrifying aura. The air itself trembled under the pressure. But before anyone could move, before even a word could form, a scream tore through the air. You bastard!" It wasn't Goku. It wasn't Vegeta. It came from the far edge of the crater. Raw, furious, and filled with a rage deeper than any Saiyan could summon. A dark surge of Kui exploded outward, like a volcano erupting in reverse. The blast came from a lone figure rising like a bullet into the sky. Frieza. The tyrant's body blazed with a storm of black and purple energy, his aura flickering with tiny white points, like distant stars trapped in a swirling hurricane. His scream echoed off the canyon walls, rage ripping through every syllable. He'd been unconscious, laid out by Gohan hours ago, body broken. But as soon as Beerus' life ended, something snapped. Was it the fear of death? The realization that he could be next? Or maybe it was deeper. Maybe it was because someone else had just killed the only being Frieza had ever truly respected. "You killed the only being I've ever respected," Frieza shrieked, his voice nearly cracking. "You destroyed my path to true power. My one chance to become the real emperor of Universe 7. His black form shimmered in the sunlight, a sleek, obsidian armor-like body with bulging muscle and divine energy dripping from his form like oil. Cracks of dark lightning zipped around his figure, warping the space near him. Every breath sent ripples through the atmosphere. Even the sky itself dimmed, as if the stars had pulled back in fear. Goku felt his gut twist. He clenched his fists, his hair shifting slightly from the force of Frieza's rising ki. "He's been holding all of this back?" Goku muttered. Even the Guardian raised an eyebrow, just a twitch, a flicker of interest. But Frieza didn't care. He wasn't looking for approval. He wasn't even looking for a fair fight. He wanted revenge. With a sudden boom, Frieza rocketed forward. His fist glowed with black light, charged to bursting. He aimed straight for the Guardian's jaw. Crack! The impact echoed like a sonic blast, so loud it cracked the sky. The Guardian's head snapped slightly to the side. He didn't grunt, didn't blink, just slowly turned back and looked at Frieza. "Was that supposed to hurt?" he asked calmly. Frieza froze mid-air, eyes wide. What? His voice cracked, suddenly unsure. "That can't be. I hit you with everything I had." But the truth was clear. Frieza was out of his league. This wasn't arrogance. This was a cosmic mismatch. The Guardian, one of Xeno's elite, was simply operating on a level far beyond anything Frieza had touched. Panic settled into the tyrant's golden eyes. In a burst of fear, he threw both hands to the sky. His aura twisted violently, then exploded upward. Black energy spiraled into the heavens like a tornado. Above him, the sky shattered with color and pressure as his ki gathered into a monstrous shape. It was Frieza's supernova, but not like the golden suns he once hurled at planet Vegeta. This one was different. This one was darker, a colossal black sphere, swollen with shadow and glowing purple lightning, formed above his palms. The very core of it pulsed with emptiness, like a black hole trapped inside a sun. The planet trembled. Air itself was being sucked upward toward the orb, the gravity so intense that even the clouds bent toward it. Down below, Piccolo's eyes widened. His cape flapped wildly from the pressure as he shouted over the roar. "Is he insane?" If that thing dropped, it wouldn't just destroy the battlefield. It would erase the entire planet, maybe even more. Goku looked up, his face set in grim disbelief. Frieza had truly lost it. "It would work," Goku said quietly. "If this was anyone else." He clenched his fists tighter, but it won't even scratch him. The energy was real, the danger was real. But in this fight, Frieza was still outclassed. The Guardian's power was something else entirely. High above the broken battlefield, Frieza floated like a mad god, his body crackling with rage and energy. His hands were raised, his face twisted into a wild grin. The reflection of the black supernova shimmered in his crimson eyes, a massive, howling sphere of darkness pulsing with violet lightning and death. "Burn in the abyss!" he shrieked, and with a furious twist of his arms, he hurled the supernova straight down at the Guardian. The enormous orb roared through the sky, tearing open clouds like paper, trailing destruction in its wake. The pressure from the attack alone pushed the air out in every direction. It was no longer just an energy blast. It was a cosmic collapse shaped into a weapon. Down below, the Guardian lifted his head. For a brief moment, barely a flicker, there was something in his face. Not fear, but acknowledgement. Then, it was gone. His mouth twisted into a snarl of defiance. "You think this will save you?" With a grunt of power, the Guardian planted both feet into the fractured earth. Then, he raised his arms with perfect timing, palms slamming upward, and caught the supernova head on. Boom! The impact blasted dirt, rock, and debris outward in every direction. The ground beneath the Guardian caved in, forming a fresh crater beneath his heels from the weight of the attack pressing down. Above him, the orb strained and bulged, still roaring with energy as it clashed with his divine strength. "Not bad," the Guardian muttered, arms tensed. His voice was calm, but it carried that edge, like he was almost impressed. For a being like him, this kind of power would have meant trouble for most gods of destruction, but not for him. The black supernova ground against his palms, pulsing, resisting, but not overcoming. Far above, Frieza bared his teeth and pushed even harder. "Just die already!" he roared, and the orb swelled, growing even more unstable. It howled with gravity and death. Lightning lashed out in violent arcs. The sky above was choked with swirling black clouds. The Guardian didn't flinch. His eyes began to glow white, and then he stopped pushing. "Enough of this charade," he said, voice suddenly cold as a frozen void. With a slow, terrifying motion, he began to compress the massive black supernova. His fingers curled inward, and the world screamed. The sound was like steel being crushed under a mountain. High-pitched, grinding, impossible. Streams of violet and black energy shot out from the sphere as it shrunk. Kai twisted and spat in every direction like solar flares. The sky itself seemed to twist in place. "What?" Frieza shouted, panic breaking through his voice. He stared in disbelief as his ultimate attack, the strongest thing he had ever created, was being folded in on itself. The Guardian's hands moved with finality. With a thunderous crunch, the once humongous black supernova was crushed into a tiny glowing sphere, no larger than a basketball. It hovered inches above his hands, small, dense, and unimaginably powerful. A miniature star imploding in real time. The Guardian glared upward at Frieza. "Take it back." With a flick of his arm, he thrust the orb back into the sky. It shot upward like a comet, trailing a blinding ring of light behind it. Frieza barely had time to scream. "No!" He threw both arms forward, forming a key barrier in desperation. But it wasn't enough. The compressed supernova struck the shield. Boom! Boom! The sky was swallowed in black and purple fire. A blinding pillar of energy exploded outward from Frieza's position, piercing the heavens and lighting up the entire battlefield like a dying star. The shockwave tore across the horizon. Even from miles below, the force felt like a full-force nuclear detonation. The entire planet quaked under the pressure. The land fractured. The air screamed. Mountains split in half. Oceans evaporated in a flash, and the fighters still standing could do nothing but hold on. "Get down!" Goku yelled, throwing his arms forward. In a flash, he formed a thick energy wall, wrapping it around the others. Behind him, God Piccolo snapped his own fingers, layering a second Kai barrier on top. Their energies overlapped, glowing like a fortress against the apocalypse. Vegeta and Gohan anchored the line, pushing back with every ounce of strength they had left, shielding the unconscious bodies of Gohan and Broly, still bound as one inside Gohan's fused form. Chunks of molten rock rained from above. Searing plasma lit up the edges of their shields. For a moment, it felt like the end of everything. The explosion raged on, longer than any of them could have imagined. And then, finally, Mercifully, it began to fade. The sky was quiet. The blinding blast from Frieza's black supernova had finally faded, leaving only trembling air and swirling smoke. Every warrior on the ground lifted their eyes, scanning the sky for a sign. For a long breath, nothing moved. Then, through the thick curtain of black smoke and glowing embers, a single figure dropped. Fast. Frieza. He fell like a meteor. His once perfect, polished black form now shattered and burned. His bio-armor was scorched, cracked wide in places. One horn was gone, completely vaporized. Half of his tail had been torn away by the blast. His right arm was missing below the elbow. And his eyes, his blood-red eyes were wide with shock, the pupils twitching. His mouth hung open, caught in a silent gasp of disbelief. No words came, only broken air, but the Guardian was already there. Boom! In a flash of lightning and energy, the Guardian blinked into view, appearing directly in Frieza's path mid-fall. With perfect precision, he drove his knee straight into Frieza's gut. Wham! The impact folded Frieza around the Guardian's leg, like a crumpled piece of metal. A burst of blood splashed from the tyrant's lips. But the Guardian wasn't done. He raised both hands over his head, fingers locked, and brought them crashing down onto Frieza's back. Thoom! The double hammer strike sent Frieza hurtling straight down, his limp body spinning through the air like a dead star. Boom! Frieza's broken form smashed into the ruined battlefield below, kicking up a cloud of dirt, debris, and twisted energy. Another crater opened up, a deep, smoking hole scorched into the earth. Dust billowed. The heroes watched from afar, silent, grim, and cold. Even after all of Frieza's power, his terrifying new form, his unleashed wrath, it hadn't been enough. Not even close. Inside the crater, something stirred. A faint ripple of movement. A groan. Frieza was still alive. Barely. With his one remaining arm, he pressed a trembling hand against the cracked ground and tried to lift himself. His body was a mess. Chunks of armor missing, blood oozing from his chest and shoulder. His energy so low it barely flickered, but his spirit, that stubborn, hateful fire, it hadn't gone out yet. I am Lord Frieza, he gasped, his voice wet and hoarse. I will not be defeated by the likes of... His words choked off into a gurgle. Only one of his eyes could still open, and it was full of tears. Not sadness, but fury. That was when the Guardian dropped into the crater. He landed softly, feet touching the cracked earth with no sound. He stood over the dying tyrant, arms loose at his sides. He looked down, head slightly tilted, not with sympathy, but with contempt, twisted with pity. You should have stayed at the edge of the battle, so-called Emperor, the Guardian said, his voice low and cold. Maybe I would have saved you for last. A quick death, painless. His eyes narrowed. But you interrupted my battle with the Saiyans? He stepped forward. For that, you'll die now, in agony. Frieza let out a raspy scream and lunged. It was all instinct now. His battered frame surged forward in a wild swipe, clawed fingers aiming for the Guardian's throat. Once, that blow might have cracked a mountain. Now, it barely registered. The Guardian caught Frieza's wrist mid-swing, effortlessly. Frieza's eyes flared. Let go of me! But the Guardian didn't speak. His fingers began to tighten. Crunch. Bones shattered. The sound echoed like snapping tree branches. Frieza howled, an ugly, raw scream of pain. His hand twisted under the pressure, limp and useless now. Even from above, the others winced. Vegeta narrowed his eyes, fists clenched. He dreamed of this day, watching Frieza suffer. And yet, this felt different. This wasn't vengeance. This was butchery. The Guardian still held Frieza's broken wrist, and now, he raised his other hand. At the tip of his index finger, something began to form. It wasn't fire. It wasn't light. It was darkness. A tight, swirling orb of energy, no bigger than a marble, spun into existence. A singularity. It twisted space around it. Even the tiny pebbles on the ground began to slide toward the gravity of it, pulled forward by the crushing weight of the thing. It wasn't energy. It was absence. It was a void. Frieza's eye went wide. His body froze. He sensed what it was. Knew, instinctively, that this was the end. A death beyond death. Erasure. He kicked, thrashed, tried to rip free, but the Guardian's grip never loosened. The orb pulsed once. Then the Guardian leaned in. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Consider this an honor." His eyes locked with Frieza's. "You'll die knowing it took a Xeno-level threat to bring you down. You die with your honor intact." And then he plunged the Singularity Sphere straight into Frieza's chest. For a heartbeat, there was no sound, only light. Not white, but black. A terrible, collapsing dark light that seemed to flip reality inside out. At the center of it, Frieza screamed silently. His mouth stretched wide, but no sound came. Only the howl of gravity and erasure. The miniature black hole, embedded in his chest, had begun devouring him from the inside. His black armor tore first, splitting like fragile glass under pressure. Then his pale flesh peeled away, limb by limb, atom by atom. Even his glowing red eyes bulged and twisted, pulled toward the single point of annihilation now spinning at his very core. And then, with a final crushing implosion, the singularity collapsed. Frieza was gone. Not killed, not defeated. Erased. When the Guardian stepped back, nothing remained. Just a faint shimmer of dust, tiny gray motes drifting in the heated air like the ashes of a fallen star. The mighty emperor of the universe, the coldest, cruelest tyrant to ever breathe, had been reduced to nothing. Silence returned, heavy, tense. Only the faint crackle of energy drifted through the air like dying embers. The Guardian exhaled slowly. His hand opened, and the last curls of black ki faded from his fingertips. "Ashes to ashes," he muttered. There was no gloating now, no show of pride, only the voice of a weapon completing its mission. But fate is stubborn. Even as the tyrant's body was erased, something survived. Unseen by any eye, a single fragment remained. A charred cell core, no bigger than a pebble. Blackened, scorched, but still alive. This tiny chunk of biomatter held what remained of Frieza's life force. It pulsed faintly, like a dying ember refusing to go out. Then, a last ripple of force from the dying singularity. Just one more twist of gravity launched the core into the air, higher, faster, beyond vision, and far above the battlefield, at the edge of space. A swirling micro-black hole had formed. The chaotic energy of the clash had torn open a tear in reality, and into it, the core flew. The last piece of Frieza vanished, swallowed by the void. No one noticed. Not yet. Someday, somewhere, that story would continue. But for now, the tyrant's saga was over. Back on the ground, the world was still. The once vibrant sky was now dim and heavy with smoke. Energy scars ripped through the air like battle tattoos. The land had been torn to shreds. Craters, fire, and molten rock as far as the eye could see. In the center of it all, 4 warriors stood. Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, Brohan, bruised, bloodied, drained, but alive. Above them, still pulsing with unstable power, hovered the Guardian, the final threat. His body shimmered and glitched, flickering in and out of focus. Sparks leapt from his skin, and jagged lightning forked along his outline. Even now, power leaked from him like a broken dam. Brohan stepped forward. His golden aura flickered, unstable. Deep inside, he felt it. The fusion magic was almost gone. A few minutes left, maybe less. Just a little longer, he whispered to himself. Hold together. He clenched his fists. They had to end this now. The Guardian slowly descended, hovering a few feet from the ruined ground. His breathing was deep, strained. The battle had worn on even him. Long, ragged scratches crisscrossed his armor. Purple blood trailed from his side. Still, he smiled. Sparks danced around his body, flickering like wild fireflies, but they carried the weight of destruction. The very air around him bent and twitched, as if reality itself struggled to keep him contained. And in those red and black eyes, there was only wrath and joy, twisted, satisfied joy. "All that's left," he said, voice layered in dual tones, grinding like crushed stone. "Are you miserable mortals?" He cracked his neck, left, then right. Each movement left an echo behind, a ghostly afterimage, showing just how unstable his fused body had become. "Your gods are dead. Or broken," he said with a slow grin. And now, his eyes lit up, glowing like suns of blood and ash. "It's your turn." Far across the universe, past shattered stars, forgotten moons, and the glowing wreckage of fallen fleets. In the cold, airless dark of space, a lone Frieza Force scout ship, drifted slowly near the swirling edge of a black hole, one that hadn't been there the day before. Its sleek metal body was pitted and scarred from battles long past. Inside, the last surviving members of the Frieza force worked in silence, their armor dulled and dented, their pride buried under layers of fear and hope. Suddenly, alarms blared softly through the ship. "Sir, you better look at this." A low-ranking soldier turned from the control console, his wide eyes glowing with panic and something else, wonder. On the main screen, a pulsing signal, small, almost invisible, but impossibly dense. A single life signature. "That's not possible," another muttered. They tracked the signal. The coordinates placed it at the event horizon of the newly formed black hole, a place no one returned from, and yet the scanners didn't lie. Within moments, a group of elite soldiers wearing reinforced hazard suits used long-range energy grapplers to retrieve the object. It floated gently into the ship's airlock. When they opened the containment field, what they found wasn't a survivor. It was a fragment. A strange crystalline shard, roughly the size of a clenched fist, smooth and jagged at once. And inside it, swirling like storm clouds frozen in glass, was dark light. It pulsed, softly, steady, alive. "Could it be?" one whispered. They didn't hesitate. Within minutes, the core was placed in the center of the ship's regen chamber, a cylindrical pod filled with glowing green healing fluid. Tubes wrapped around the object. Lights blinked across control panels. And then, slowly, the fluid began to swirl. Inside the pod, the object shifted. Tiny slivers of tissue, so small they couldn't be seen with the naked eye, began to regenerate, slowly, painfully. Frieza's cellular core was awakening. It would take time, a long time, months, maybe years. But it was happening, one cell at a time, one nerve, one bone, one thought. The soldiers stood in silence, watching the regeneration begin, barely daring to breathe. They knew what this meant. Their emperor, their true emperor, had survived. Even oblivion couldn't kill him. And someday, when the time was right, he would rise again. Not as he was, but as something far, far worse. Stronger, smarter, furious beyond imagining. In the quiet darkness of space, inside that small regen pod, Frieza's remains floated, drifting like a ghost in green light. And deep within the swirling chamber, something opened its eye, waiting. And that's it for today's episode, guys. If you watched to the end, then that could be an indication that you enjoy the series. So please leave a like on the video. Thank you and take care.